You get it. The AI revolution is happening everywhere. Being the forward-thinking individual you are, you're ready to bring a crack squad of savvy, motivated data scientists and AI specialists into your company to streamline operations. It's easy to imagine what you'll accomplish, but there are a few hazards you need to be aware of. You know AI can go off the rails sometimes. In today's episode, I'm going to go over 3 examples where that has happened and what you can do to avoid them. I'm Evan Goldstein, data scientist and licensed professional engineer, and I'm here to help business owners and professionals bring the tools of artificial intelligence to build profitability to supercharge their operations. We all remember the Great Recession, which began in 2008 with a financial panic and economic crash that came with it. The root cause of the crash was mortgage-backed securities that were given high credit ratings that actually collapsed at the first signs of economic turmoil. And I'm not just talking about credit ratings given over by the ratings agencies. The investment banks purchasing these securities were taking on a lot of risk based on their own models. But these models did not and could not take into account the situation that the data was gathered in. Once the underlying economic mood had changed, the world was now filled with pervasive fear and uncertainty. As the wave of bankruptcies gathered steam, borrowers who might have ordinarily stretched their finances to cover mortgages now realized that they were less likely to find new jobs. For the borrowers, the equation between food and mortgage had changed. The computer had no data to predict the behaviors in this new world. When the market conditions change, you need a human being with emotional intelligence in the room to take a good look at the model and make sure it's providing value. And if you're finding this episode of value, I would really appreciate it if you would please push the like button. By pushing the like button, you're helping spread this content to others and letting me know that I'm providing you with useful content. Moments of panic and chaos can expose failures in data analytics in other industries as well. An acquaintance of mine who was working with a major airline manufacturer told me about his troubles in the early days of the COVID-19 pandemic. If you're manufacturing aircraft, basing your procurement strategy on AI-generated sales projection is a good idea to streamline your operations. But in this case, the last time a major pandemic struck was a century ago, shortly after the Wright brothers flew the first airplane. One of the data streams feeding into the AI model was airline travel records. The early days of the pandemic saw hordes of panicked travelers flooding into airports trying to catch flights home before the doors slammed shut. This spike in air travel had and did result in a false signal to expect more orders of aircraft. It's as if the pandemic were about to cause a new golden age of international travel. In this case, my acquaintance's employer was very slow to react because their model told them to keep procuring materials for future orders. Overnight, the model had become irrelevant, making predictions for a world that no longer existed. Any human being could see with his own 2 eyes that yes, there was a lot of air travel right now, but flights everywhere were about to be grounded, so a whole lot of orders and backlog were obviously going to be canceled. The manufacturer's reliance on algorithms to set bulk material orders without a human sanity check led to a severe procurement nightmare. In this third case, I was familiar with a process plant that wanted to measure the efficiency of their maintenance crew and look for places to optimize their time. Each technician was walking around with a tablet that told them where to be, which piece of equipment to be working on throughout the day. In preventative maintenance, the main metric you want to look at is time on tools. How many hours were technicians spending actually working on equipment? The non-productive time was spent on paperwork, walking to or from equipment, sitting in meetings, etc., etc. The easiest way to figure this out is to use geolocation to track the movements of the technician's tablet. How long was the tablet sitting in the supply room, in the meeting room, at the equipment, etc.? Based on that data, algorithms could be applied to suggest efficiencies that would optimize the use of time. For example, by arranging tasks to minimize the amount of time spent walking from place to place. Now, you can probably guess the reaction when word got out about this idea. The technicians assumed that they would be tracked going place to place so that their performance, and therefore raises and promotions or even layoffs, would be spit out of an algorithm. It wasn't the intent, but when given 2 explanations, people's imaginations will always veer toward the most frightening one. The moral of the story: any situation that involves privacy concerns or sensitive labor relations needs to be approached with extreme caution. It's not worth antagonizing the union to get a little more efficiency. So we've seen 3 cases. In the first case, we have a change in market sentiment that computational models just couldn't adapt to despite all their supposed superpowers. In the second case, the situation changed so drastically that the computational model failed and gave exactly the wrong advice. In the third case, the data gathered would have been very useful, but privacy concerns and suspicion made implementation more trouble than it was worth. In all of these situations, any human with one iota of emotional intelligence could have been able to see the problems coming. No matter what level of AI you're applying, computer models are not magic black boxes, they're just simulations. It's your job as a business leader to gain some understanding of the building blocks that go into your model and apply a bit of common sense when you see them in the real world. And that's what AI Capitalist is all about, so keep watching this channel to learn more.